Today on Locked On Red Wings, Detroit gets just 1 point from the weekend, but from two very different performances.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. Scotty's also over at Locked On Tigers, as well as a freelance journalist for the Detroit News, while I am a color commentator for Oakland University, D1 Hockey. And Scotty, we can't riff for too long because we have two games to break down, but shout out Detroit Lions, 6-1, beating up on a bad Titans team, but really beating up on a bad Titans team.
Yeah. Well, it was special teams. The special teams dominated.
Raymond.
Both sides, yeah. Punting was really good. Obviously, returning was incredible. And then, obviously you had Paul Bunyan on Saturday night too. So a heck of a weekend for football in the beautiful state of Michigan for sure.
It's nice that you can watch a win on the turf because you weren't seeing much winning on the ice this weekend. Back-to-back games, back-to-back losses. Caveat though, one of those being an overtime loss. So you'll take the point. But you definitely want more than one with 4 on the table going into the weekend. And Scotty, I mean, that's where we lead off today. And before we get to that, I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Red Wings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, and of course on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Now backtrack. That is where we start this episode, talking about the two games this weekend. And we had a conversation about should we go reverse chronological because the Edmonton Oilers game is freshest in our mind, or should we go chronological because the Buffalo Sabres game kind of informs the Edmonton Oilers game? And ultimately, you won out. I think your idea was the better way. We talk Buffalo first, even if it's not fresh, just because you can't. The Buffalo game directly leads into the decisions made heading into the Edmonton game. So where do you want to begin with that in terms of difference maker in that game?
Yeah, well, I think, honestly, this might be kind of cheating, but I think my difference maker in this game was team zone entry. That's, I don't know if that's allowed, if we have, tangible, concrete rules for what a difference maker can be, and it got a little bit better as the game went along when they got a little bit more into as we call it on here, desperation mode. They got a few more opportunities, but I'm not kidding. The first half of that hockey game was some of the worst zone entry I have seen in a very, very long time. That was an atrocity. There was at one point in the first period where I thought the Wings were going to end with the same amount of shots they ended with the first period against the Islanders when it was 3. I was like, they might end with 3 shots. And then again, ultimately in the last couple of minutes there, they had a few opportunities, but it was dump and chase, and pray. And that is, it was terrible. It was absolutely terrible. And I think that, again, the reason why we're starting and we are talking about it chronologically is because there was a huge shakeup in lines and personnel groups and a lot from one game to the next in a back-to-back where you had to travel. A lot changed in the span of, 12 hours or whatever it was. So I think that for me, that was honestly the biggest difference maker of the weekend. I think the coaching staff literally looked around at what the offense was doing, how consistently they had the puck, which was never, how consistently they were able to enter the zone, which was never, and went, you know what, something has to change. And for better, what ended up being better in the Edmonton game. So I'm going to go with, in this game specifically, but really for the whole weekend, I think the zone entry against Buffalo pretty much determined all the personnel groups you saw the rest of the weekend.
I 100% agree. I know you're like, this might be this might not be real or not count, but I was actually thinking the same thing. And we didn't talk about who our difference makers were from this game before we hit record. And I was going to say 5-on-5 play because legitimately the reason they lost this hockey game was the same flaws, the fatal flaws we were seeing on that 3-game win streak since the start of the season. It was puck retrieval, in transition, in the break-in. It finally caught up to him. And Alex Lyon, he did what he could. I think the defense is doing a good enough job of keeping the really high danger air shots away from the goaltending too. But once they sweep that puck into the corner, they can't do nothing. They cannot get that hockey puck. And that was the problem all game long. And notably, and this is why we're starting this way, because again, it informs the second game. Notably, that second line was abysmal again.
Terrible.
And JT, poor JT Compher. And not that he's absolved of all guilt by any stretch of the imagination. But Patrick Kane had one of the worst 5-on-5 performances I've ever seen out of him. He felt like he was constantly behind the play. He wasn't really engaging in many puck battles along the boards, and he definitely wasn't winning them. Vladimir Tarasenko on the opposite side, same story. Like, they just looked like an incredibly slow top six line, which is something that we've seen all season long. Even in that win over the New Jersey Devils, in which Patrick Kane had 2 late huge points and a primary assist on Larkin's goal and a goal, at 5-on-5, he didn't look great. And this game, he looked really bad too. So it screamed at Detroit that they needed to shake something up. And they did for the game against the Edmonton Oilers, which still resulted in an overtime loss. But the shakeup worked. That game against the Oilers, and we'll talk about that, obviously, as the game went on, the ice began to tilt back to the Oilers. But starting off, that game was completely different. But, talking about the Buffalo Sabres game, again, it was just more of what we had seen all season long up until this point. The season's young yet, but something clearly had to change. But I will give props, and we'll talk more about this top line. The top line did look good in the Buffalo game. They did look good. Obviously, DeBrincat scored one of the goals. It was a beautiful, and shocker, you win a puck battle in the offensive zone, you gain possession, and you set up, you score a goal. Dylan Larkin engages in a puck battle behind the net. Lucas Raymond comes along, scoops it up. He gives it to Sider, or he gives it to Cat, who gives it to Sider, immediately back to DeBrincat for a one-timer. They score. That top line was the best line, and they should be the best line all night long, all afternoon long, really. And they were the only line that could consistently get any sort of offense. In fact, that line, Dylan Larkin had a Corsi 4 percentage, a shot attempts percentage at 5-on-5 of 55%. Lucas Raymond had a shot attempt percentage of 54%. Alex DeBrincat of 51%. Moritz Seider and Simon Edvinsson, your top pair, who we'll be talking about a lot today because, they were also shining bright amongst these two losses. 53 and 51. Like, you have a top pair and you have a top line that are dynamite, because we're going to talk about them again in the game against Edmonton that they lost. The top line and the top pair, everyone else pales in comparison to them right now. It's crazy how much better this top line is and top pair is than the rest of the team.
Yeah, and I think then when you transition into notable performances, that is them, right? Like, that is the notable performances are the top line and the top pair. I think I completely agree with you. It's head and shoulders better. The only time they were able to apply pressure and keep the puck in their own possession was it was when that top line was out there, and specifically when Larkin was doing the zone entry. He's pretty much for years now has been the only guy that can really consistently break into the defensive zone without doing a dump and chase. And yeah, man, it was clear. It was very, very clearly was the most productive line. And they rode them into the ground there at the end, in the third period to try to claw their way back into it. And obviously they did not. Lucas Raymond had a shorthanded goal first of the year. That was really nice. He also still leads the team in assists. So he's still producing a lot offensively. Yeah, man, I don't even have too much else to say about the game. It was a valiant effort of a comeback that fell short from a team that refused to possess the puck. And it led to all of the changes and a huge, lineup card shakeup on Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely. And the only other thing I can say is just despite those massive flaws and how poorly they played possession-wise, that just, again, led to more. And I actually disagree with you. You started off talking about how, they pushed a little bit. They pushed at the very, very, very end. When they pulled their goalie, they had some good chances. But in the third period, they weren't pushing at all because they never had the puck, which again just emphasizes the fact that they're so poor puck possession-wise that they can't even get a good push right now in the third period. Edmonton on Sunday, they pushed, they tied the game and ended up winning it because they could possess the puck and push. You can't do a third period push if you never have the puck, and that was a huge problem. But at the same time, despite how poorly they played at 5-on-5 in this hockey game, how close were they to still getting away with a win. If Alex DeBrincat doesn't miss a wide open net backdoor on the power play, and that's the second time that's happened to him this season, where he's just missed a wide open net. They take an early lead, and they don't lose this hockey game. If Patrick Kane doesn't hit the post with a wide open net with the goalie pulled, they don't lose. I mean, they at least don't lose in regulation, because that shot went off the post right to, who scored that empty netter for them? Right to Jack Quinn, who just fired it all the way down for a goal. Like, Patrick Kane unintentionally got the assist on that goal, because instead of scoring, he hit it off the post right to Jack Quinn. It was incredible. Like, this team, their PDO right now is like 1.3, because despite the fact that they're not playing great 5-on-5 hockey, they're still finding a way to put themselves in a position to win these hockey games. And at the not like consistently, but in big moments. And they just couldn't dig themselves out of the hole this game. They just were not lucky enough.
I agree.
All right, we're heading ahead to segment 2. Talk about the Edmonton Oilers game, because that's fresher in our minds. And we'll talk about how it was a huge shakeup and a very strong start by the Detroit Red Wings. So stay tuned to that. Segment 2 of Lockdown Red Wings. Got to talk to you guys today about Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best way to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. Just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money action on sports. Join over $10 million, or 10 million users rather, and sign up today. And by signing up, you can get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It is guaranteed. PrizePicks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value to your lineups. Download the app and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, that's code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Segment 2, Lockdown Red Wings podcast. All right, Scotty, let's talk about the game against the Edmonton Oilers now. Red Wings could not hold on to the lead. They fall in overtime to a Edmonton Oilers team that, like you noted on Friday, is off to a slow start. But as we are well aware, because we watched hockey last year and just know that they have dangerous players, are always a dangerous team. So they ultimately fall in this game. We saw some huge shakeups to the lineup. Scotty, how about you break down for the listeners who we saw in and out before we get to the difference makers?
Yeah, well, that was the thing, right? Like, that is the shakeup that happened, as we've reiterated about 50 times, like, clearly very much needed to happen. But I think the biggest thing when we were texting about, when we were texting about this, when the lineup cards dropped, was, you know what? The quote unquote shutdown line, I think, may be a thing of the past, and how the value in it is very, not niche isn't even the right word. I'm not sure I can think of one word to describe it, but like it does its job. The shutdown line that they have does its job well. It has performed well, but the value of having your third line most games be a complete shutdown line that you're not going to rely on for offense on a consistent basis over 82, and is really only out there to shut down and not give up goals for prolonged periods of times, is while nice to have in the back pocket, it is more of a luxury if you have overwhelming offense everywhere else. And the Wings very clearly have not had overwhelming offense anywhere else, nonetheless, everywhere else. So I think that was the biggest thing, was like, you are now seeing lines. The top line in this game was DeBrincat, Larkin, Raymond, which obviously has been the top line for most of the season. Line 2 was Kopp on the left wing, Comfort up the middle, Kane on the right. Third line was Tarasenko on the left, Casper up the middle, Berger on the right. The fourth line was Veleno at center, and then Rasmussen and Fisher on the wing. So like you saw much more of an infusion of, you know what, we're going to put defense and offense together, right? Like that second line is Comp, defensive-minded, Comfer, two-way player, Kane, all offense, no defense. Third line, Casper, two-way player, Berger, mostly offense, Tarasenko, mostly offense. Berger, although, has been working on, obviously, the defense a little bit. And then that fourth line, Rasmussen, Fischer, defense, Veleno, a little bit more offense. Like the fact that they're trying to be like, okay, like maybe we can try a scenario. I'm talking way too long, but like maybe we can try a scenario where like every line can do maybe everything for a change instead of having like these specialty lines that are nice on paper, but I'm not sure correlate to success over 82.
Right. And at least for the first period and 5 minutes, it was working fantastic. The Red Wings came out night and day. A team that's just getting past the flu bug, a team that's playing on the second half of a back-to-back, came out with fire in underneath them. And that second line, and I agree with you too. Like they were, and Max Bultman pointed this out in his, and so shout out Max Bultman, fantastic. Read all his stuff at The Athletic. I cannot speak good enough things about the things he writes. We can't
speak highly enough of Max for sure.
That shutdown line, as you put it, and I agree, was extremely effective. But it came at the cost of chemistry for the other lines, not top line excluded, in that they were over-reliant on that line to do things. By breaking them up, now you can have a little bit of ability to mix it up. And with Marco Kasper up, which we cannot say enough good things about Marco Kasper being called up, just the ability to give you options messing with your lineup, you can get lineups like you did today with that second line, Cop, Comfer, and Kane. Now you can insulate Kane, who's been having a poor 5-on-5 season so far, with two guys who are both two-way forwards that both have playmaking ability just like Kane. And it paid dividends, at least early on in the hockey game. You know, you saw JT Compher engage in a puck battle down low. I'm sorry, Andrew Kopp engage in a puck battle down low. Patrick Kane comes and scoops it up. Beautiful
backhand pass. The line had both goals.
Yes. And then, again, Patrick Kane passed to Jeff Petrie. Petrie shoots, Kopp in front of the net, deflects it for a goal. Now, to be fair, at 5-on-5 across the entire 60 minutes, they were still not great. But they did instantly hook up with instant chemistry to give this team a 1-0 lead and then a 2-1 lead. And like, while they were your worst line metrically, like the shakeup helped down the lineup too. Like that Marco Kasper, Vladimir Tarasenko, and Jonathan Berggren line were leagues better than the third line that we have been getting.
If your worst line metrically is responsible for every goal you score, like that's a sign that like something right is happening on the other lines, despite the fact that they're not finding the back of the net, right? Like that's that if you want a glass half full, that those stats, like you can pretty easily. That's not necessarily a bad thing. If your worst line metrically can still score goals, multiple of them in a game, that's a positive.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, your fourth line not getting a ton of minutes, but Joe Veleno went out there. The line was fine. Like, it was serviceable. It was kind of almost – I haven't looked at how they were deployed, but it was an option I suggested as a secondary, a new look shutdown line, because you still have Fischer and Rasmussen together, and Joe Veleno's a two-way center as well. I don't know how they were deployed. I don't know if that's how they were deployed, but that's a solid fourth line. And then, shout out Joe Veleno, got into a fight, dropped the gloves with Corey Perry.
Hit him on the ear a couple of times. Not a bad little tussle there, man.
Got a little feisty. And I mean, like, overall, and I guess we'll get the difference makers and notable performers in segment 3 for this game. Overall, we're kind of doing this in reverse. We usually do like overall feelings on after we do that stuff, but it was just Buffalo informs Edmonton, so it's just the way this episode is breaking down. This was a much better performance. Actually, it was the best performance the Detroit Red Wings have had all season. Now, I know that in the third period, in the second half of the second, the ice tilted. Edmonton turned it on, and they were starting to play like the Edmonton that we have all seen. But this team, look at the stats. Like, they are only trailing by 5 shots-wise. They out-hit them by 12. They won 14 more face-offs than the Oilers did. Like, they just... Overall, they were a much better team, and I think they outplayed Edmonton. Without a doubt, they outplayed them in the first period by a large margin. They look like a completely new team. So I don't see a reality with how this team played in this game where you can shake this lineup up again. Like, you got to roll this lineup going into the next game, because if they play like this, they'll probably get most games. They're going to win most games.
I completely agree with. I don't know about the win most games thing. I think we probably need a bigger sample to jump to that far. But like, it is
Well, if they play like
certainly
today.
right. It is certainly the best offering that you have put out on the ice so far this year. It's like not even close either. Like that is easily the best all around game and certainly possession game that the Wings have played all season. It's really not even particularly close.
Yeah. We're going to head to another quick break. When we return, we'll get to our difference makers and our notable performers before sending you guys off to your Monday morning commutes or Monday afternoon commutes, wherever you're driving at the time. So stay tuned to Locked On Red Wings. I guess
Only people driving listen to our show?
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. FanDuel, get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win the first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. All right, Scotty, now that we're done ranting about how this was a much better performance overall, why don't we talk about difference makers in this game? What ended up being the difference maker for you?
Yeah, this one's tough. I think there's a few guys we'll probably end up talking about, but ultimately my difference maker was Leon Draisaitl. Like it's really tough for that to not be the answer for me.
The birthday boy.
He had 2 of the 5 total goals scored between both teams combined, and one was the overtime game winner. Like that's really tough for me to not view as the biggest difference maker in this hockey game. He is one of the best players on the planet, and it was his birthday as well, and showed out for it.
Yeah, also had the primary assist on Evan Bouchard's goal, so he played a huge role in every single goal that the Oilers scored in this game. Completely agree with you. That is the difference maker. I don't really have anything else to add in terms of difference maker. So, Scotty, if you want to get right in notable performers,
do it. Yeah, well, I think, again, if we look back at the shakeup, we talked about the lines and everything. We obviously have gone probably way too in depth on all of the personnel changes that happened. I want to give a shout out to Cam Talbot, though. I thought that he had a really nice game in this one, I thought that what
I said he did.
Yeah, nice. He had a really nice game, and I think that he was. I mean, even the one goal he gave up was just like a perfect screen, like out in front of him. And then obviously you had like the redirect and whatnot. And then, the overtime one, like whatever. But also, can we make it past like the 15-second mark in overtime ever? Like, I feel like that was a thing last year too. I know that's like a random like ADHD thought there, but like we used to, that happened all the time last year. We would just lose immediately after puck drop in overtime. Anyway, I thought Talbot had a really good game, and I think that I am more optimistic about the current goalie tandem that the Wings have than I ever thought I was going to in the month of October. Like I thought this was going to be like, oh my goodness, like this is going to be really shaky. I voiced my concerns about goaltending for a while. I still have some reservations about how it holds up over 82. It is a very, very long season, and we are very early on in it. But early on in it, they have both, Lyon and Talbot, both have been really, really solid. And so I want to give both of them their flowers for sure.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you on that one. I'm pleasantly surprised with how well Lyon and Talbot, they've both had a stinker, which is funny, but outside of those two stinkers, they've both played incredibly well for the Detroit Red Wings. I mean, Talbot had a .912 save percentage again in this game. Like, they're giving the Red Wings every chance to win, and sometimes they're stealing wins for the Red Wings too. So, yeah, shout out to Cam Talbot for another great performance. I mean, Scotty, biggest notable performer for me, Simon Edmondson and Moritz Seider, top pair. They especially Simon Edmondson. Like, obviously everyone knows how good Moritz Seider is, but the rapid growth that Simon Edmondson has had to do to play top line minutes with Moritz Seider, and the way he's grown into it, he had his best game of his young career tonight with the Edmonton Oilers, against the Edmonton Oilers, rather. He was used in every situation. He ended up playing 24 minutes of ice time, 22 of those minutes at even strength.
Yeah.
He was a force to be reckoned with. And I know that final goal in overtime, he didn't get his stick underneath Draisaitl's and lift it. I'm sure he was just absolutely gassed. And that's not an excuse. Like, you still got to lift the guy's stick. But I'm not gonna poo-poo a guy who was just fan-freaking-tastic all night long. I am so impressed. Like, we talked in the offseason about how you start Edmondson on the second pair, and hopefully by the end of the season, he's worked his way up the top pair minutes. But very quickly, that top pair with Sherratt and Seider was not working. The second pair with Edmondson and Petrie was not working. So they said, screw it. We're going to put our two best defensemen together, and they have been dominant. When your top line, and this is another game where the top line, too, you want to give more notable performers. Sorry, I'm stealing all of them. The top line was great again in this game, too. Larkin, DeBrincat, and Raymond have been so good. Notably, Lucas Raymond has been so effing good. Like, this is a situation where I would drop a hard F-bomb if I could, because that's how good Raymond has been. Just like, he has been so superb. Like, both Seider and Raymond have absolutely earned their contracts, and they're playing like it, even if Raymond's not getting the goals. But Raymond's playing, to go back to the Buffalo game, he's playing penalty kill. Like, he scored his first goal of the season shorthanded because they're trusting him with penalty kill now. And in this game, like, he's engaging, and he's one of the only guys who will engage and win puck battles, him and Larkin. Like, it's just been, they lost, and that sucks. But there was a lot of good in this game despite that.
I completely agree. And, that's more of a, you got to look at each game as its own entity, which I think is kind of like what we were trying to portray here. Like, these were totally different hockey games by two seemingly entirely different Red Wings teams. And I think that there is a lot more optimism and a lot more hope, really, in what we saw from the Wings on Sunday, if that is going to be the team that we see going forward. Now, if it reverts right back to, never having the puck in their possession and looking a lot like they did in the first 7 or 8 games there, then, the conversation is going to shift pretty quickly. And the next game they have, because we have the most ridiculous first month of the season ever, is on Wednesday against literally undefeated Winnipeg Jets team, who is 8-0 currently. So,
for much longer.
Fun. Right. Agreed.
Well, luckily, they have 2 days to relax before then, rest up, and get set. Yeah, I mean, I just think that the top line and top pair were really fun to see. I think this lineup worked. Sure. Notably also Johansson back in the lineup, playing with Olli Maatta. I thought they were fine. I think Johansson maybe by the end of the game was a little worn down. Same with Olli Maatta, that third pair was struggling on the breakouts, but he's a young player. He's gonna go through these types of things, especially as a rookie. So I would still like to see more Johansson and less Gustafsson, but I know that's not realistic. Man, that's crazy how quickly we've turned on Gustafsson too, man. Just absolute stinker performances. It sucks because they need him to be good for the power play. But I really like our own guys. We like our own guys. Johansson's one of our own.
It's performance based. It's not personal. we're not ragging on him because he's not like a system player that came from the farm. Like, he hasn't played well. Like, that has nothing to do with it. But yeah.
Anyways, it's a good thing that it's a good thing that Talbot and Lyon are playing well, because Husso tweaked something in Grand Rapids and is week to week, and I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit more in depth tomorrow. Yeah. Carter Mazur also tweaked something and is week to week. Amadeus Lombardi, second star of the week for the AHL. He's off to a hot start toward pace, which is great to see from that slightly undersized scoring winger. Had a little bit of a lackluster rookie season with Grand Rapids, getting an increased role. He's stepping up early in the season. Grand Rapids as a whole has been fantastic so far this season. So we'll talk maybe a little bit more about that tomorrow and Tuesday. As far, do we have any? Am I missing anything? Am I not mentioning something that needs to be mentioned from this game? I know I missed chunks because I had my own hockey game, but
no.
All right, cool. Fun fact: Mort Seider and Simon Edvinsson. Simon Edvinsson had a Corsi for percentage of 62%. So that's shot attempts at 5-on-5. 30 shot attempts for, 18 against when he was on the ice. Moritz Seider had a 26 shot attempts for, 19 shot attempts against when he was on the ice for 57.78. They spent 15 minutes each at 5-on-5 against Connor McDavid.
Wow.
So they dominated this hockey game. They were so good.
That Incredible. Is very, very encouraging.
Now, if only the depth could show up and play decent. Anyways. We ball?
We ball.
Same time, same place. It's your team.
Every day.